Started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Eumetcal program's webinar on creative, effective case study exercises. My name is Tsvetros Lazarov. I'm an instructional designer at the Comet program. And joining me today are my wonderful colleagues Fabienne, Kellyanne, Sarah, and Tracy. And together we're going to introduce you to a couple of ideas of how you can create effective case study exercises. So let's get started. We think that successful training is about getting the right people to do the right thing at the right time. And so what that means is that people should be able to recall the skills and information from their memory when they encounter a situation and then use those skills and knowledge in order to correctly resolve the situation before them. And based on our experience with training individuals around the world, we have found that the context, challenge, activity, and feedback framework is a very powerful way to create effective case studies. And today we'll share with you some ideas of how you can approach it and create your own case studies so that these four elements, the context, the challenge, the activity, and the feedback can come together and help you create a very effective, meaningful, memorable case study exercises. So let's take a look at an example. So on the screen, you see that I have an objective for my learners to create and deliver a briefing that concisely describes the expected weather, the time of arrival, the duration, and the potential impacts. And so when I'm creating a case study for them, this is what I will try and do. I will select a hurricane that is threatening New York City, which means that millions of people's lives are going to be affected by it. So this is a realistic situation, a realistic context that can happen to my learners. For the challenge, they will need to create and deliver the briefing 3 days prior to landfall. And that means that there is considerable uncertainty in the storm's path and in the intensity of the tropical cyclone. For the action and activity part, I would like my learners to write 2 sentences about each of the briefing elements, and then they need to deliver the briefing within 5 minutes. And finally, for the feedback, we'll have an audience of stakeholders who are listening to the briefing and trying to make decisions about how to prepare the people in New York City. And so if the briefing is full of scientific jargon and it does not meet their needs, they will be confused, perhaps they will be angry. Or if the meeting meets their needs and it is done in a way that they can easily understand, they will become empowered to make the decisions that they need to make, and they will ask insightful questions. And so I hope you can see how with the feedback, we are providing the consequences to our learners' actions so that our learners will get a chance to reflect on the effectiveness of their actions and then decide if that helped them achieve the objective. And if not, they will try and work through the case study again in order to be successful. Now, there are a number of different strategies that we can use to create case study exercises. Today, we have just 1 hour, and so we have selected 2 that are very powerful ways to engage your learners, particularly with scientific information. The first approach to creating a case study is known as the problem-solving investigation. And the second one is known as the guided discovery. So let's take a look into each one in more detail. So with guided discovery, we give our learners a task, and then we provide them with information so that they on their own can study and investigate and then complete the task. Naturally, we are going to provide them with some feedback on the effectiveness of the solution that they create for their task. And now let's take a look at an example so that you get to see how this is done in practice. So here we have an exercise in which we are showing our learners that Hurricane Michael brought 16 deaths and $25 billion of destruction to the United States. And then we're letting our learners know that with better decisions, they can change this terrible outcome. And so we provide them with the following map. This is the map that Hurricane Michael took through the Caribbean and the United States. And our learners now have the possibility to look at these 7 decision points and then make different choices and then see how that will affect the outcome from this weather event. And so I will start here at the first decision point. This is the public message that was issued at that time. These are the storm surge products that were available, and then also the wind hazard products that are available. And now the learners have a choice. They can choose to change the message to this option that they see here, or they can choose to keep the message the same and then not change it. So in this instance, I will select no change. And now, as you can see, the learners can work on pretty much any of these remaining 6 solutions in any order that they like. They're the ones directing their study and their own investigation. And so, for example, I will jump up here where a local politician completely misdescribed the conditions of the storm. And so I need to decide what type of action I'm going to take in that situation. And then perhaps I will decide that this is all that I need to do in order to improve the outcome from Hurricane Michael. Then I can click the done button, and then I see here in the newspaper that thousands of people were rescued. So I have made progress. No one has died. And I have diminished the damage a little bit to about 10 billion or so. But also I need to do a lot more work in order to change the outcome of this event completely. And so this is how a guided discovery approach works when you are creating a guided discovery case study exercise. Now, the other approach that we suggest you consider is called problem-solving investigation. With this approach, we begin with a challenge to our learners, something that they need to investigate, something that they need to solve. And then they begin analyzing the information that we have provided them. They do their own research, and they can identify a potential solution. Then they implement the solution, and naturally, we provide them with feedback on the effectiveness of that solution. And now here is another example to illustrate how problem-solved investigations work. So in this exercise, we have been contacted by a public health expert from a city. She has noticed an increased number of medical visits for respiratory and cardiovascular problems in her city. She has ruled out the spread of an infectious contagion, and she thinks that it's possibly something in the atmosphere above the city, and she needs our help in order to investigate and determine what is going on. And so here we have our public health official and our information in front of us as learners. And so the public health official has asked us a question about the presence of ozone near the surface and the physical processes associated with it. So as a learner, I can take a look at my computer. I can read information about ozone formation. I can also watch an animation that explains how ozone forms and the different processes that help it increase in intensity as a pollutant over a city. And then based on what I see here, I can select an answer for the public health official. And in this instance, my answer confused her because I mentioned that the summertime we have limited amount of ultraviolet radiation, which is not the case. Naturally, she is confused and then requires more clarification on my part. And then, of course, I can select the better answer, which then helps us continue with our problem-solving investigation. So this is another example of how problem-solving investigation can work as a case study exercise. Now, with this example from air quality in mind, let's work through some questions to help us identify what is the context, the challenge, the activity, and the feedback in this air quality example. So this is where we'll use the Point Solutions app. And this should be displaying on your screen, on the mobile device. And so take a look at these 4 statements and decide what is the context for the air quality exercise. Is it that public health officials are confused or successful in determining the cause? Is it that people are seeking medical care for respiratory and cardiovascular problems? Is it that determining the cause of the increase in medical problems, or is it research and answers on questions from a public health official? So go ahead and send in your answers. All right, the answers are slowly coming in. And if you're not sure, don't worry. It's much better for you to guess if you are not sure. That will help you figure things out during the discussion period that's coming. All right, we'll wait a few more seconds to give everyone a chance to send in their answers. Okay, let's take a look and see what you think about this. All right, we have a wonderful spread of opinions here, which is fantastic. And so in a moment, you will see an invitation to join into a breakout room. And once you go there, your main task is to convince your partner there that your answer is the correct one. You will have about 3 minutes to do this, so please make sure that both of you have a chance to try and convince each other that your answers are the best ones.
I'm wondering, should we reduce the number or increase the number of participants per each session? Because if some of them don't join, which some of them are not joining.
Yeah, I would ask those who are not joining to actually join. That will increase the benefit for you from this webinar.
For example, in 8, 10, and 14, it's only one person. And by the time I pull them out and back in.
Can you move them?
Not easily.
Yeah, maybe we make groups of 3 afterwards.
Yeah.
Then the risk is a bit smaller.
Mm-hmm. But most of them have like 2 or 3. Like in the first one, we only have 1 out of 3.
I guess people are feeling a little shy this morning.
Yeah. So let's go with 3 next time.
All right, that sounds good.
I'll be calling them back. So 1 minute. 10 seconds.
All right. All right, welcome back everyone. And so you see the results from our first round of voting on this particular question. So now I have opened the poll again. And so based on your discussion, if you changed your mind, go ahead and select a new answer. And if you didn't change your mind, go ahead and select your old answer. Right, the answers are coming in. We'll wait a few more seconds to give everyone a chance to vote, and then we'll take a look at the results of your discussion. All right, let's see what you think about it. Aha, we have gravitated towards option B, which is wonderful because those of you who selected that are correct. The context for this case study exercise is that people are seeking medical care for respiratory and cardiovascular problems. Now, with the context in mind, what is the challenge in this exercise? So take a look at the remaining three statements. They're the same as the ones before. So you are already familiar with them. So send in your answers. All right, the answers are coming in. We'll give you a few more seconds. All right, let's take a look and see what you think about the challenge for this exercise. All right, let's go back into our breakout groups. And again, remember that your goal there is to convince your partner that yours are the correct answers. And so please try to join into your assigned breakout groups so that there are no breakout groups with just one person in there. We'd appreciate it very much.
Now we have a few of 3 out of 3, but then we have some with 0 out of 3. And a few with 1.
Only one group.
Yeah, they
with
have
one.
all 5.
Hey, Svet, Claudia just said before that we should advertise the hackathon at the end of the webinar.
Oh yeah, already in there.
Good,
Yes.
great.
I have this post-webinar survey, like 1-minute survey. How easy was it to find? How did you find us? So should I do that part, or can you incorporate it somehow?
We could probably incorporate it into a longer one after a couple of weeks have passed.
No, I mean, idea was after each survey that we send, after each webinar, we send out survey, give them the link to just say how did they find us, how did they find it.
All right. Yeah, that will work. I was planning
Yeah.
to send something a few days after the webinar just to check if people have used the information.
I can send you the link directly, just we'll see. So I'll be closing the session, 1 minute, you know.
All right.
So yeah, after you are done, I can just tell them to click this link and deal with that. In the end, this wasn't so bad. Like all of them have at least some people, although one is still 0 out of 3.
Right. Well, that's a better distribution. It's always good to have someone else there to talk to.
I'm tempted to go to 4.
Yeah, 4 becomes a little too many.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like 40 seconds per person talking.
Right.
5 seconds.
All right. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Now the polls are open. So if you change your mind, send in your new answer. And if you didn't change your mind, go ahead and send in your old answer. We'll give you all a few more seconds, and then we'll take a look at the results of the discussion. All right, let's see. Aha. So we have rotated towards 2 of the options. So those of you who selected determine the cause of the increase in medical problems, you are correct. That is, in fact, the challenge that we have presented our learners. They need to help the public health official determine the cause for the increase in medical problems. So now that we know the context and the challenge, what is the activity in this air quality exercise? These are the only 2 remaining options. You're already familiar with them, so please go ahead and send in your answers. Right, we'll give everyone a few more seconds. And let's take a look and see what you think. Excellent. You are correct. The activity is that as learners, we need to research and answer the questions from the public health official. And of course, by the process of elimination, it means that the feedback is the reaction of the public health official depending on the answers that we provide her. When we provide confusing answers after our research, the public health official is confused. And when we provide answers that help us continue with determining the cause of the medical care situation, then we are successful in finishing the case study. All right, so here is a quick overview of what we have just done. One of the objectives for this particular exercise is for the learners to describe the life cycle of ozone and other common pollutants that are found above a city. And so the context was that people are seeking medical care for respiratory and cardiovascular problems. The challenge is that we need to determine what is the cause for this increase in medical problems. The activity for our learners was to research and answer questions from the public health expert. And finally, the feedback was the reaction of the public health expert to our research and information. And so, as you have seen, it is really important for us to have a very clear objective in mind when we're creating our case studies. And our objectives need to describe what is that our learners should do in the case study in a very observable and measurable way. Let me illustrate this with an example. Imagine that I have created a case study and half of the people in one office have taken the case study and the other half have not. If I walk through the office, I should be able to recognize the people who have taken the study by the actions that they're taking in order to perform their duties. And so those are the actions that we need to describe in our learning objectives. And so if we see our learners taking these actions, that will be the evidence that they have successfully completed the case study. So let's unpack this a little bit more. Here are 3 objective statements. They're all written for the same objective. Take a look at each one of them and decide which is the most observable and measurable description of learner performance. I see some of you voting in the chat. Thank you. Give you a few more seconds to send in your votes. All right, let's take a look and see what you think. Okay. So the correct answer here is B. And I'm so delighted to see that most of you selected that. Now, in order to see why that is the best way to express the learning objective, let's take a look at the other 2. Now, A and C are very appealing. A says, demonstrate proficient communication skills. And yes, we want our learners to demonstrate proficient communication skills. How are they going to demonstrate proficient communication skills? By creating and delivering a briefing. Now, C is also very appealing. We would like our learners to understand how to deliver a briefing. How will they be able to show us their understanding? By creating and delivering a briefing that describes those weather elements. And so with this understanding of learning objectives, we're going to jump into our work period for today. So as you remember, we requested that those of you who are coming in, you bring some actual data to create a case study on a problem, an instructional problem that you're working on. And so you'll have a chance to write at least one objective, and we ask you to then use either the problem-solving investigation approach or the guided discovery approach to begin work on your case study. In order for us to do this, we will be using Miro, and in a moment, the URL for Miro will appear in the chat. I see many of you are already there, and in a second, you will have the link one more time. Oh, Fabienne has already posted it. Thank you so much. And so when you come here, you will see this workspace, and they are all numbered, so you're free to pick one number and then work in that space. Now, in the middle, you will see a table that has the learning objective and then columns for context, challenge, activity, and feedback in them. So this is an example that you can follow if you'd like as you create your own case study in the table below. Now, if you did not bring information with yourself in order to create a case study for an instructional problem, we have provided one for you. This is what you see right next to the table. And so take a look at the situation that we have given you here and what our learners are struggling with. And then you can use these 3 products and also the graphs here in order to create your case study. We've also provided a helpful reminder what is problem-solving investigation and guided discovery, And if you needed help with writing some learning objectives, we have provided you with a table of descriptive verbs that will help you state the objective in an observable and measurable way. And if you prefer to do something else, we have provided you with some examples of case study exercises that you can visit on the METED website. And there, your challenge will be to figure out what is the context, challenge, activity, and feedback in each of those. And so we also have our wonderful colleagues today. We'll go into our breakout groups in a few moments, and my colleagues and I will be moving through the groups and then assisting you with any questions you may have.
And maybe
All
just for the groups, the idea is not that you create the activity together in the group, but you are just a group of two or three people. And in case that you have questions, maybe your partner can already help you. And if your partner cannot help you, we, the instructional designers, we will come and join the groups. So that's the idea of those groups of 2 or 3 people.
Thank you, Fabienne. All right, so let's get started. So all of you jump into your breakout groups, find a workspace in Miro, and